Ever seen those memes about old men in anime? How they're jacked like crazy? Well, Captain Yamamoto certainly embodies that. You know how those gym freaks have massive veins all over them? Well, this old man is covered in scars instead. You want to talk about hype? This old man is dripping with it. In every sense of the word, he's one monster of a man. By far the strongest and most respectable Shinigami. I mean, just look at him. I've never seen a beard this smooth. Naturally, as strong and as well respected as he is, he must also have an equally distinguished past. Well then, how about we go back in time, back to when the Gotei 13 was first founded, or perhaps even before that? His story as we know it began 2,100 years ago. He was an instructor and both Shinsui Kiraku and Jushiro Ukitake were his students. It was also during those days that his soon-to-be right-hand man, Chojiro Sakibe, gave him the iconic forehead scar. This scar happened because Chojiro really wanted to be Yamamoto's right-hand man, but since Yamamoto was a tough nut to crack and considering how he'd rather Chojiro be his disciple instead, Chojiro uses his Bankai to prove himself. Chojiro's reasoning was that if he joined Yamamoto's school, he'd only ever try to imitate him. But as a right man, he'll compensate for the areas which Yamamoto himself cannot address. A fine conviction if I do say so myself. He couldn't though. I mean, he couldn't defeat Yamamoto in the fight, but he did leave a permanent scar. Even back then, Yamamoto had a strong reputation, but the flow of time continued. Then, about 1,000 years ago, a monster appeared in Soul Society. It appeared in a time when Soul Society was in dire need of help. That is when a monster walks in. He fights chaos with chaos and literally becomes the foundation of a new age. That's right, Gotei 13 is founded and he himself becomes the first captain commander. Then, of course, he tries to do a little recruiting by seeking out the most dreadful criminal of the Soul Society. We are, of course, talking about Yachiru Unohana, and you know the rest. Nobody really had a respectable past back then, but we all start somewhere, don't we? Subsequently, a great battle of significant historic proportions took place during this time. Captain Yamamoto and his OG captains fight against the father of Quincy, the son of the Soul King himself, the man that goes by the name Yhwach. One can only imagine the sheer extent of this battle. And the fact that Yamamoto actually managed to defeat and even take out Yhwach for an entire millennium is surprising in and of itself. Although the man had his own reservations about this conflict, in the sense that he ultimately could not kill Yhwach for good. At one instance, Yhwach catches a young Shinsui Koraki just sneaking into his room. The boy asks about a painting which depicts a dark individual cloaked in fire. And so, Yamamoto states that a monster appeared in Soul Society a long time ago. It appeared when Soul Society was in turmoil, but the monster's presence only made things worse. The chances of the monster's return are slim, but if it were to emerge again, that may very well be Yamamoto's last day in Soul Society. Then, roughly 110 years before the current time, Yamamoto is now the oldest among the Gotei 13. A lot happened during this time period. For example, the seeds of Aizen schemes were planted, and look how that turned out. Now, before we jump ahead to the ending of this video, and essentially also the ending of Captain Yamamoto's legendary life, we have to acknowledge that for the past 1,000 years, no one, not even a single Shinigami, has been able to rival, let alone best, this absolute unit of a man. And so, this is what he tells Aizen during their fight. The absolute pinnacle of what a Shinigami is, the alleged ruler of flames, and yes, his legacy goes beyond just his strength, but his strength is indeed the driving force behind everything he stands for. From the moment he started the Gotei 13 till when he defeated Yhwach, and even now during the current times, Yamamoto maintained his persona as the strongest. I'd reckon he spends at least 2 hours a day thinking of quick and witty statements about himself which he can then drop whenever there is an opportunity. I am here. There is no greater security than that. I mean, dude is literally ready to shut everyone up just like that. This happens in the beginning of the 1,000-year Blood War arc. The 1,000-year is indeed an homage to what happened 1,000 years ago. When he bullies the invaders, one of them declares that the Soul Society will be destroyed in 5 days. The perpetrator will be Wandenreich. But since we can't accurately pronounce it anyway, let's just call it the Hidden Empire. When the Quincy were defeated back then, they all fled to a realm called Serete, and that became the beginning of their hidden empire. Next up, after thousands of years of friendship, Yamamoto loses his right-hand man. That's right, Chojiro dies in battle thanks to a masked man. He says his final words to Yamamoto and fades away. This has a tremendous impact on Yamamoto. More than a partner or a lieutenant, Chojiro was most importantly Yamamoto's friend. You can practically feel the pain oozing out of Yamamoto's glare. The sheer dexterity of everything that is going on soon becomes very apparent. It's all because Yamamoto couldn't kill that man 1,000 years ago. That man is indeed Yhwach. Sure enough, Yhwach invades the Soul Society. One thing leads to another, he absorbs his father, the Soul King, and quite literally becomes the very definition of being overpowered. Now, it is impossible for anyone to defeat Yhwach in any way or form unless it's the protagonist himself. All the death flags are there, folks. It's time for the old man to put an end to his legacy. As my friend Kaido from One Piece said, "Death is what completes a man." As the final fight of his life, Yamamoto takes on Yhwach. It certainly wasn't pleasant when he saw his dear friend Chojiro's Bankai being used on him. I mean, that's the Bankai that gave him the forehead scar. It's like a time capsule. Only this time, the one using that Bankai is not his friend, it's an enemy. Yamamoto's greatest nemesis. Ultimately, Yamamoto knew that the ground he stands on is his deathbed. Cloaked in his own Reaksu that was gradually evolving into flames, labeling himself as the heat of the sun, and then comes the grand finale of his life. Yamamoto dies by the hands of the very man from whom he vowed to protect the Soul Society. A tragic end, and the heart burns even though rain falls. He never bowed while he was alive, and he died standing up. Now, what do you guys think about him? About the founder of Gotei 13, the monster, the man named Genryusai Shinokuni Yamamoto? Go wild in the comment section down below. Free cookies for everyone who likes and subscribes. And with that said, I'll see you guys on my next video.